Hello everyone, welcome back and Happy New Year. My name's Adriana. I'm a knitter living on the east coast of Canada, and today I'm going to share all about the knitting projects that I worked on in the past month, mostly January, kind of end of December as well. I have two finished objects that I'm really excited about. It was a good start to the year of knitting for me with these two projects, and a couple works in progress. So we'll just jump right in. I have my knitting basket over here with everything that I want to talk about kind of arranged in a circle, so I can just kind of pick one thing out at a time, go around in the circle, and hopefully everything's here and it'll be really efficient. My first finished object is actually something that I haven't shown here yet. I'm realizing that I'm a fairly monogamous knitter, and so I'll start a project and kind of see it through till the end. Unless I hit like a roadblock or something, then I'll put it down and pick something else up. I might have two projects going at the same time, but for the most part, it's not really anything more than that. So this project I haven't shown here yet, but I did update as I was working on it on Instagram. So if you're interested in more of the kind of incremental and like process of my knitting, you can go check that out if you want. Anyway, this project is these orange socks, these bright orange socks. I really wanted to have a pair of bright orange socks. At first I was thinking like hunter orange, like bright orange, but the yarn that I ended up using was a combination of the Briggs & Little sport weight yarn, and I think this is just in the color orange. The color name is just orange. Yeah, the color name is just orange. And I did use their regular sport yarn. There's no nylon in it. And I found this Mohair at the thrift store and thought it would go really well with this bright orange. I wanted it to be bright orange, but then when I got this bright orange, I'm like, I don't know if I want it to be that bright. So I thought putting this Mohair with it would kind of tone it down just a little bit, but not too much. This Mohair is from Handmaiden Fine Yarn, and it's angel hair, 70% kid mohair, and 30% nylon. And this is in the color pumpkin. So I thought that putting the 100% wool together with this mohair and nylon blend would be a good idea for these socks. The mohair and nylon would make it a bit more durable, and I have one other pair of socks that I used like a silk mohair with, and they are my favorite socks to wear. Like the feeling of it is so nice and soft. I feel like if you're sensitive to mohair on your body, like around your neck, or feeling it like on your arms or something, using it in socks might be a good option for you, because I feel like your feet maybe aren't as sensitive to things like that. And to me, it feels like it almost feels like those, I don't know if they make them anymore, but I remember there was like a trend where there was like lotion infused fuzzy socks, and that's what the feeling of socks, like wool socks with a mohair, silk mohair strand, feels like to me. So it's really like almost like buttery soft and super cozy, super comfy, and super warm, of course. So yeah, I had one other pair of socks that I had a silk mohair strand with, and I thought I would love to have another pair. I wanted these socks to be super simple, super basic. They're just a stockinette sock. I didn't even do like a ribbed cuff. Just started with stockinette and just knit the whole way. I decided to do a short row heel for this sock, and I love these. I've worn these socks already so many times. super cozy, and I really like the way that the yarns blended together. It didn't end up being kind of like one uniform color. Well, I'll hold it up next to this so you can see it's definitely toned down from the bright orange of the wool, but it's a lot brighter than the mohair. So it really did keep the like punchiness of the orange, but toned it down just slightly. And then it kind of has this almost mottled look from where the mohair kind of was more dominant in a stitch. I did think it was interesting, if you can, I don't know if it's really showing up well. Okay, maybe on the foot. You can kind of see there's almost like a line where the mohair was more dominant down here. Oh, you can see it here too. Sorry, someone was at the door. So what I was saying was you can kind of see a line along the side of the sock where the mohair was more dominant, and that happened on on either side of the magic loop that I did. I knit these on magic loop, and I guess just using that method made the silk mohair more dominant. I don't know if it was like at the end of a row or at the beginning of the next row that just made the mohair a bit more dominant. And there is kind of like a line where the mohair, the darker mohair, is showing up, but it's fine. I love these socks. Sorry if they look a little worn. It's because they are. Yeah, I'm a big fan of mohair in socks. I feel like if you have leftover silk mohair from like a sweater project or something, using it in socks is a really good idea. I did not follow a pattern for this, but I will link a pattern below that is just like a plain stockinette sock. It's free, and yeah, you can get something similar to this. I don't remember if it had a short row heel, but you can look up how to do a short row heel and add it into the pattern if it's not that type of heel. My next finished object I'm so excited about, and I feel like people say this about every sweater project that they finish, but like this sweater is my favorite sweater that I've done. Oh, speaking of sweaters, I didn't mention the sweater I'm wearing is the Cinema sweater by Veronica Lindbergh, or Kuta Vakika. And yeah, in case you were wondering, that's what I'm wearing. Okay, so this sweater, it is currently my favorite sweater, and I wish I was wearing it now. That's how much I love it. Let me get it out. Here it is. This is the Harlow sweater V-neck by Kadri. It's this beautiful drop shoulder pattern that has a 2x2 ribbed V-neck, and then a really large, like thick 2x2 ribbed cuff on the arms, and 2x2 ribbed hem. Some modifications before we get into like specifics of what I want to talk about with this project. Some modifications I made to the pattern were, I knit it much more cropped than what the pattern suggested. I knit the size extra large, but I think I ended up knitting the body length, like before you start the ribbing, the body length, I think I knit it to the smallest size. So the body length, the body like width, everything about the sweater is the size extra large, except for the body length is closer to the smallest size. The other modification I made was I didn't do a split hem. The Harlow sweater V-neck has a split hem where you, once you're done like your body length, you split the front and back, and then you knit the front of the hem to a length, and then you knit the back of the hem to a little bit longer. And I knew I wanted this to be cropped, and since it's such thick, like a long amount of ribbing, I didn't want it to be like where the split, you could like see my skin underneath it. I usually wear like high-waisted pants. But I thought even with that, if I like lift my arms up or something, I didn't want skin to be showing. So I decided to just keep it as one hem altogether instead of doing the split, and I love it. It's perfect. I've been talking before about wanting to make sweaters that are a good length so that I can wear them untucked and feel like it looks good. A lot of my sweaters in the past that I've made and that I've bought, I feel like I have to tuck them in, like do a little tuck in the front to make them look the way I want, or like look nice and not kind of like it's swallowing me or something. So yeah, I've been trying to knit my sweaters to a length that I can wear them untucked and I feel like they look really nice. So this is a good length for me. Again, with high-waisted pants. And yeah, the only thing with the fit of this, now that we're talking about fit, is that this sweater, it's made to sit like this. And the way I would wear the sweater, or like V-necks in general, is by having the back go down a little bit more and then the V kind of up higher. I'll try to put in a video to show what I'm talking about, but basically where the back of the neck is not like right on your neck, it's down a little bit, more oversized, kind of slouchy-ish, because this sweater is knit to be like having the back of the neck touching your neck. When I wear it the way I want to wear it, the front hem comes up quite a bit, and it's like a pretty dramatic difference between like the front and the back of the sweater, like the height of the hems, which I guess if I had thought more about it before I started knitting it, I could have combated that a bit. I think what I needed to do is knit the front piece longer while I was knitting it flat. Knit it longer before joining in the round for the rest of the body. So if you also like to wear your sweaters like that, that could be a way to get it so you could wear it how you want and then have the hem be the same length, or like hitting at the same spot all the way around. Either, I guess, knitting the back to be shorter or the front to be longer before joining in the round. I think that's how you would solve that problem. Okay, let's talk. I want to talk about the yarn. I want to talk about the pattern and like the knitting process of it. Let's actually start with the yarn. I used a local yarn from, the brand is called Old School Acres, and I have some left over. I used a worsted weight yarn for this project. This is the first project that I hit gauge on the first try, and this is the first sweater project for myself that I've made without a fluffy strand of something to go along with whatever like wool I'm using. So a few firsts for me. Anyway, this yarn is just sheep's wool, 100% wool, undyed. It's this beautiful, in some lights it looks brown, in some lights it looks like a really warm gray color, and it's just so nice. I forget what the sheep breed is. I don't have any of the tags with me, but yeah, that's the yarn I used. Before I started knitting this, I did notice that there were some color variations throughout the different skeins of yarn that I had. Some were this color, and then some were a bit darker. It is hard to see the color difference, and I hope you can see in this lighting, but it was enough of a color difference that I was able to notice it with my eyes. And I was like, okay, if I'm noticing it when it's kind of like all wrapped up in a cake, I'm definitely going to notice it when it's flat knitted. So I thought I would try helical knitting to try and blend the yarns together so that I could not have a problem where I join a new ball of yarn and there's this big color variation. So I did make a swatch, and in the swatch, I really can't tell the difference between the two colors. I did like every 2 rows, like I did back and forth with the lighter color, then back and forth with the darker color. I really can't tell the difference. Like I can't see that there's like, oh, there's definitely stripes happening. And so I was like, yes, let's go with this kind of like striping, helical knitting. But when I started the project, I ran into a few problems. The first problem was that you start with doing a bunch of short rows, and I did not know how to do this striping, like going back and forth between 2 yarns while doing short rows. So I'll put in a picture of what it looked like. So I did try to do it, and basically what I wanted to do was I had about 2/3 of the yarn I had was the lighter color, and then 1/3 was a little bit like of the darker color. So what I wanted to do was do like 2 rows of the lighter color and then 1 row of the darker color. I ended up with like 3 balls of yarn going at the same time, and I would have to carry yarn over, I guess, 2 rows. And it didn't line up to be on the edges because I was doing short rows. So it was kind of pulling the fabric in a weird way. And I knew when I blocked it, it would maybe be even more apparent because the fabric would kind of stretch a bit, but then where the yarn was like joining itself in another row, it would kind of pull on those stitches. So it wasn't looking good in that sense, but it was also really not looking good in the like color variation sense. Like, I don't know what happened with my swatch that it looks so seamless and good. But when I actually went to knit it with, you know, alternating skeins of yarn, the striping was so apparent, and to the point where I was like, this looks like a striped sweater. So I, yeah, definitely hit a roadblock there with both like, okay, this color variation is more apparent than I thought it was, and it's not working like alternating skeins. It wasn't working. I got quite discouraged with that because I had finished the whole like short row section, because I was like, as I was working out, I was like, this looks bad, but I'm just gonna finish the short rows, and maybe once it's like a bigger piece of fabric, it'll look a bit more blended and not as apparent. And so I finished the short rows and it looked really stripy. And like I said, there's that weird pulling on the stitches where I would like have to stop at the end of a short row and then join that yarn like 3 rows down, but it's like 6 stitches in or something into the row, like not on the edge of the row. So yeah, it didn't look good, and I didn't know what to do because I knew I didn't have enough in one color to do the whole sweater. So someone actually commented on a previous video suggesting, like, do you think you would have enough to do the like body and arms in one color and then save another color for all the ribbings? And that had crossed my mind like when I first saw that there was this color variation, but then I got so stuck on like, yeah, I can blend it. And when my swatch turned out so good, I was like, yes, we're blending it, like this is going to be great. And then yeah, when things went bad, I was just so stuck, and I didn't even think of that. So I'm glad that person left that comment, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to like actually weigh my yarn and see if it's possible. So like I said, I had 5 skeins of yarn in the lighter color and then 3 in the darker color. I calculated, like I actually weighed how much yarn I had, and I think I had enough to do like 60, like low 60% of the sweater in that lighter color, like the one that I had more of. And I was like, okay, I know I'm going to crop it, so that'll probably use less. And then I also was like, I know that like the pattern said to have X amount of yarn, but I'm like, it's pretty certain that you're not going to use like the whole amount of the yarn. So I was like, I think I could get away with doing what that person suggested, doing the body and the sleeves in one color and then doing all the ribbing in another color. I thought for sure like the neck ribbing would take a lot because it's a whole 2x2 ribbed V-neck. So it's a bigger neck than normal, and it's also folded over. So I was like, okay, I think that's probably going to eat up a decent amount of yarn. And yeah, once I decided that, I was like, I'm just going to have to be okay with the fact that the ribbing is going to be a different color. Once I decided to do that, I just like took off with this project. I swear I was like flying through this so fast, and it was so much more enjoyable just knitting with one ball of yarn instead of trying to manage like 3 different balls at the same time and alternating skeins and not liking the results of that. So it was nice to just be able to go. And then I ended up having enough of the lighter color to do the whole body, all the sleeves, not all of the neck, but like half of the neck. So I knit the first half of the neck ribbing length in the lighter color, and then I switched to the darker color that would be folded down. So the side that you see is the lighter color, like the same as the body, and then the inside that you don't see is the darker color. So I had enough to do so that the neck would be the same color. And then I ended up with like a decent chunk left over when I was ready to do the body ribbing. How I did this was I did the body to where I joined in the round, put those stitches on hold, did the sleeves, and what I should have done was end the sleeves before the ribbing, put those stitches on hold, and then come back to them later. But I have such a tough time like visualizing how the sweater is going to look without having completed pieces. So knowing like the biggest thing for me, like I said, is figuring out a good length for the body. So that's what I like to finish last, so that I can see what the top totally looks like and then know where to end the body. So anyway, what I should have done was stop the arms before the ribbing and then come back to those later when I knew how much yarn I had left in that lighter color, because I did end up with a decent amount of yarn left. Oh, sorry, I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but after I did the sleeves, then I did a bit of the body, but I just couldn't visualize it without having the neck done. So then I figured I would have enough of the lighter color to do the right side, I guess, of the neck, or the side that you see of the neck in the lighter color. So I did that. And then, yeah, by the time I went back to the body and was like, okay, I think I'm ready to start the body ribbing, I had a decent amount of that lighter color left. And I was like, I wonder if I have enough to do striping in like helical knitting in the body, like at the hem ribbing, and then maybe go back and do the sleeve cuff ribbing, like rip that out and then do helical knitting to blend in a little bit more, because okay, this lighting isn't really showing the color difference, but there is there is a difference in the like the lighter color and darker color when it's knit up. Anyway, I weighed the yarn. I did 1 round of the body ribbing in the lighter color and then weighed the yarn again, so I knew how much each round would take. And I had enough to do, if I would do like every 3 rows in the lighter color, I would have enough to do the body ribbing, like the hem ribbing, and then I would also have enough to go back and do the sleeve ribbing like every 3rd row as well. Because I was like, I don't want to end up with just like a little bit of this lighter yarn left. I want to use it all. And I thought if I do every 3 rows, it might like lighten up the darker color a little bit to where it blends well with the rest of the sweater. So I went ahead and did that for the hem, like I did every 3 rows in the lighter color. And you can't tell. Okay, here you can see the color difference really well between the body and like the hem or the sleeves. So anyway, I did this every 3rd round on the hem in the lighter color, and I feel like it didn't do anything. Like I feel like there's still quite like a color variation, and I feel like you can't really see that the hem is a little bit lighter than the sleeve cuffs. Oh, yeah, the sleeve cuffs. So at that point, I was done the hem, and I have this much left of the lighter color that I have enough that I could do every 3rd row in the sleeve cuffs in this lighter color, but because it didn't really make much of a difference alternating the colors in the body hem, I was like, it's not worth it to unpick all of this and re-knit it all. If there had been like a significant difference by doing the lighter color, adding the lighter color in the ribbing, I would 100%, I would rip back the cuffs and redo them, but I don't know. I really don't think that there's much of a difference between the color in the sleeve cuffs and the hem. So yeah, I decided to just leave the cuffs as they are and have this little bit of leftover. At the time that I finished the sweater, I was worried that it was a little bit too cropped. And so I was like, okay, maybe it's good to have this left over, so if I need to go back and add some length to the body, I can. But after I blocked it, it really is like the perfect length for me. So now I just have this random little bit of the lighter color. I guess it blends well with the darker color. Like if I do striping or whatever with the darker color, it could work. But I would rather have none of this and then more of the darker color to maybe get another project out of it or something. Actually, I'm going to put it on now because I love it so much. I love the sweater so much. I love how much positive ease there is on it. I was worried that I had gone too big in the like width wise, but it's perfect. I've worn it I think 3 or 4 days now, and the things I had been worried about, or that I was like, I don't know about this, mostly with the length of it, like the level of croppedness that I did with it, and then also with the color difference, and also with the sleeves. I thought the sleeves, when I started doing the ribbing for the sleeves, I'm like, these sleeves are gonna, like the cuffs are gonna be huge. Like my arms are gonna be, like you could fit 3 of them in the cuff, but they, of course, ribbing shrinks down. So they're a really good length that I can like pull them up and they stay up. I think also it helps that it's a toothy wool that wants to kind of like grab onto something. So that helps too. But so all of those things that I was kind of questioning with this project, I'm not questioning them anymore after wearing it for a few days. So even the color variation, in some lights, it's so apparent and it looks like, wow, that is clearly 2 different colors. In some lights, it looks the exact same color, And then I would just say most of the time there's like a slight color difference happening, which I'm okay with. So yeah, really love this. After wearing it for a few days, I'm really enjoying my first like non-fuzzy sweater. My first totally wool sweater without like a fluffy strand of something. And I'm excited to knit more with this yarn for sure. And also this style of like just having one strand of wool. I have a few more things that I want to talk about in regards to the pattern itself. The pattern does not start the way that most drop shoulders that I've done. It doesn't start in the way that is typical of those. You start with a long I-cord, pick up stitches along the I-cord, and then do short rows from there. It makes it so there's this nice detail along the back, like from shoulder, goes up to your neck, across the neck, and then down to your other shoulder. It makes it so there's like that kind of like little bit of uniqueness. But I had a really hard time getting gauge for the I-cord. Like I said, I got gauge on my first try for the actual sweater part, but for the I-cord, using the needle size recommended in the pattern was giving me an I-cord that was way too short. And when I went up a needle size, it made my I-cord look really sloppy. So I figured, I-cords are pretty stretchy. So I went with just the size that it said to do in the pattern and figured, like, just hoped that it would stretch out with like picking up stitches and knitting, kind of stretching that way, and then also with blocking. I was a little worried right after I finished the project because there was some puckering happening all around the short row area. I think because the I-cord was wanting to cinch in, and then the short rows and just the knitting in general, the fabric wanted to go out more than what the I-cord was allowing it to. So that kind of had me worried that there'd be some puckering happening. I'll put a picture in that there's no puckering anymore and it just is flat. I do need to work on my short row technique because you can see all along that I-cord line. You see where my short rows happened on the one side. On the other side, it looks good, but on the one side, it's like, oh yeah, there's some like weird bumps happening. So I need to work on my short row technique for that. I think that's all I had to say about the pattern. It was easy to follow along. This is my first cagery pattern and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you can hear that wind. It's all of a sudden really blustery outside. It's been like so snowy the past few days and like very gentle, peaceful, quiet falling snow, like a lot of it. Very like winter wonderland, cozy, quiet winter vibes. But all of a sudden, just this afternoon, it's turned and now it's like really blustery and blowing snow and lots of wind. So it's a little more ominous now out there. I think that's all I have to say about my Harlow sweater V-neck. This is making me realize I love a sweater with kind of a more open neck. All the sweaters I've done up until now have been like really close to my actual neck. And I do like having something with a little more breathing room, I guess, and something that I can maybe show off another knitted piece underneath. I don't have anything with like a high enough neck, but in my mind, I'm like envisioning this having like a high neck tank top or something to wear underneath this. It's for those cold days that it's like you want up to your neck to be covered and warm. So yeah, I feel like a sweater with a more open neck lets you show off two knitted pieces at the same time. Let's get into my works in progress. I have finally got to the perfect felted level for these felted slippers. These are the double slippers pattern published by Sandnes Garn, and they are a felted slipper. I've talked about these more in depth in previous episodes, so if you want to check those out, you can. But the point that I got to last time was I had finished knitting these and I was trying to felt them. This yarn I'm using, it's Briggs & Little Atlantic yarn, 100% wool, but it really did not want to felt. Like, I put this through the washing machine and the dryer. I don't know how many times it ended up being, but it was like over 10 times. I started basically just putting these felted slippers in with any laundry that I was doing, like towels and sheets that I'm doing on like high heat, high agitation. And bit by bit, it felted to the point that I wanted them to get to. So this is what it looks like in just like when you finish knitting it and felting it, that's what it looks like. And then you fold it in on itself and it looks like this. I'm not calling this done yet because I want to sew a little like strip of leather, like suede on the bottom to help with some grip. I thought these would, I knitted, I think the smallest size, and I thought these would fit my daughter, but these are definitely more my son's size. So I'll have to modify the pattern to make a smaller version for my daughter because I have enough yarn to make like a matching set of slippers for everyone in my family. But if this is what the smallest size gets to, then I'm gonna need to make modifications to make an even smaller size for my daughter. But yeah, quick update on that project. Hopefully I will get these done soon and then like onto the next ones. For my final work in progress, I have a set of fingerless gloves that I'm knitting for my sister. She works in a cold office and her fingers, she's like typing a lot. And so her hands and fingers get quite cold. And she actually requested these. I don't know about other knitters, but if somebody asks me for something small, like socks or mittens or like this fingerless gloves that isn't gonna like take months to make, I'm really excited to do it for them. So she requested some fingerless gloves and I used some yarn that I had in stash. And the yarn I used, I'm holding 2 strands together. This is an undyed wool yarn from the same local yarn that I used for this sweater. Old School Acres is the brand. And yes, this is just undyed white. It's a sport weight yarn. Sport weight, but really like light DK weight. And I have this held together with a strand of baby Surrey alpaca and silk yarn. I haven't shown this before. I'll show what it looks like, not in a cake form next, because this was a new purchase for me. But yes, so these 2 together are making this. The pattern that I'm using for this is a pattern called Creme. It's a pattern by Emily Louise or Louis. This pattern's interesting because first of all, it's free, which is nice. And there's multiple sizes to choose from, as well as a couple different options for gauge. So you can kind of use what you have to figure something out for this pattern, which is what I did with the yarn that I had. So my thing with fingerless gloves is I feel like all fingerless gloves look a little bit like a cast, like you broke your wrist and you're wearing a cast. The first iteration of this, the first version that I did of this, looked very cast-like. It doesn't in the project photos for this pattern, but when I made it, I'll put in a picture. It was really giving cast vibes. The ribbing was so long and it was a little bit too big. I also did the thumb increases wrong, which I'm gonna need to read the pattern again because I don't know if the increases are written correctly. In the pattern, I guess I can share because it's free. In the pattern, you put a stitch marker on either side of one stitch, and then in the pattern, it says to slide your marker, do an increase, and then it says to knit one, do another increase, and then slide your next marker. So to me, that was doing your increases like along here, like you would start here, and then you would get a whole bunch of stitches in between your stitch markers. And that's not what it was. If I had like looked at the project, like the pattern photos, you would see that there's not an increase line here. I think what the pattern should say is you increase, then you slide your marker, knit one, slide your marker, and then do another increase, so that you are making increases just along here. So anyway, in the first version of this, I had done the increases wrong. It was a bit too big, like I should have done a smaller size. And then I also, when I did the cast off, it was too tight. And I was like, she needs to have enough mobility in her hands to be able to type. And it was really like squishing my pinky in. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to completely rip this out and start over. So then the second time I made it, I did a smaller size, did the thumb increases correctly. I did much shorter ribbing, and then did a looser bind off on the very end, which all I did was I went up a full millimeter needle size and then just did a regular bind off where you knit one, knit the next one, and then put the first stitch over the last stitch. Keep going around like that. And I feel like it still is a little bit like cast-ish, but not as bad. Yeah, and like there's enough mobility here that I feel like you can type. So now I just have to finish the second one, and she will have some fingerless gloves. I like this pattern and this yarn combination enough that I would maybe make the same pattern for myself, because my hands sometimes get cold, like my fingers sometimes get cold when I'm knitting. Maybe that's a sign that I should like stop knitting when my fingers get so cold, but this is also a solution. That's all of the projects I have to talk about. The last thing I have is acquisitions, and you've already seen an acquisition. I bought this yarn specifically for those orange socks. My other yarn acquisition is this beautiful baby Surrey alpaca and Tussa silk. There's a yarn store up the valley from me, and I believe it's called Gasboro Valley Fiber, if you're ever in the area. And they have a farm store where they have their own sheep, and they sell wool in like many different forms from their sheep. But then they also like have like a lot of different brands and stuff in their store that you can buy from. And each year at the very end of the year, they do a big sale. I think like, yeah, in that time between Christmas and New Year's, they have like 2 days where they do a big sale. And I went this year, and they had all of their, I forget what it was specifically, but it was like all their yarns that had, for sure all their yarns that had alpaca in it were like, had a discount on it. And I was going to, specifically, I was looking for a mohair that might match this, because I thought maybe if I had a mohair to hold with this yarn, I could blend the colors more seamlessly. I didn't find that, but I did find this. And I thought maybe I could hold this white yarn, like this white fluffy yarn, with this wool, and it would just kind of lighten the color. But I did a swatch of that and it didn't look good. It just looked marled, which that's not what I was going for with this. But anyway, I found this super fluffy, super soft, undyed baby Surrey alpaca and Tussa silk. I don't know the brand. It just had these tags on it, like no branding at all. And I think I needed like 5 to have like a sweater's quantity, and I think they had 7 available. So I just bought them all because I was like, this is so fluffy, and I don't get out to that store very often. Like if it's twice a year, that's a lot. So I was like, I'm here now. It's on sale. And I feel like a white fluffy strand goes with a lot of different things, right? So I did get that as an acquisition, as well as I actually got something to add to my Chalgu needle set. I was finding that, especially when doing like a drop shoulder sweater, like you do the back panel and then you leave those stitches, and then you do a shoulder panel and then you leave those stitches while you do the other shoulder. I'm the type of person to not put those stitches on scrap yarn or the try-on tubing. I just unscrew my needle tips, put needle stopper, cord stoppers, like the things you screw into the end of your cords, on, and just leave the cord so that when I need to go back and do those stitches again, I just screw my needles in. Anyway, so my cords get used up a lot. And so if there is any project that I want to do while all those stitches are on hold and my cords are being used, I don't have a cord for it. So I did end up getting another cable for my Chalgu needles. I got the 30-inch or 75 centimeter cable for their smaller size. So for it'll fit the 2.75 to 5 millimeter needles, which is mostly what I'm using. So I added that to my needle kit. I also found that it has come up a few times where having a 3 millimeter needle would be good. And the Chalgu needle kit does not come with a 3 millimeter. It comes with a 2.75 and then a 3.25 millimeter needle. And I know when you're working with like 0.25 millimeters, it's not that much, but there have been a few projects that I'm like, oh, I don't have a 3 millimeter needle, and I think that would be perfect. So I did get the 3 millimeter tips that like match this set. I think it's the 5-inch tips, the longer tips. And yeah, I'm excited to have that. It feels like my needle set is a little bit more complete having that extra cord and the 3 millimeter needles specifically. And that's the thing, like you can buy one of these kits, but you don't know what you actually use until you've done a bunch of projects and figure out what you like. That is everything for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you got some progress done on whatever project you're working on. And if you have any questions about the projects that I spoke about, you can leave a comment or send me a message over on Ravelry or on Instagram, and I would be happy to chat more with you. I hope you are enjoying whatever projects you're working on and they're turning out exactly as you envisioned them. And yeah, have a great few weeks, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.